Hi, I'm Lewis from Olympus. Today we'll show you how to properly load endoscopes and accessories in the OER-Elite reprocessor. Before using the equipment, be sure to read and understand the details of the instruction manual. As always, please ensure proper protective equipment is worn while maintaining and operating the OER-Elite. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact the Olympus Technical Assistance Center, otherwise known as TAC, in the event you need additional assistance.
Now let's get started. First, fit the ring of the retaining rack onto the temperature sensor of the reprocessing basin. This ensures that the rack is seated properly inside of the OER-Elite basin. Next, hold the internal ID type endoscope connector, or the external ID tag, over the ID reader section so that the reprocessor can read the endoscope information. Once the scope RFID has been scanned, the connection guide for the scanned scope will appear on the display. It's important to note that neither the ID tag nor the scope needs to touch the OER-Elite ID reader. Simply hold it parallel to the reader. Now that the retaining rack is installed and the accessories are removed from the endoscope, let's begin loading the scope. First, set the control section to the left of the index pin. This is located at the deepest part of the reprocessing basin. Then, we're going to wrap the insertion tube clockwise around the retaining rack from the outside of the retaining rack moving toward the inside. Make sure that the insertion tube's distal end is placed within the retaining rack. Once the insertion tube and the control body are successfully loaded, it's time to wrap the universal cord counterclockwise inside the retaining rack. Remember to start by wrapping the cord to the right side of the retaining rack pin. Place the universal cord under the hook of the retaining rack. Once the cord is completely wrapped, place the scope connector directly on top of the drain port. This method will ensure the scope is loaded properly. Finally, make the necessary adjustments to minimize overlapping of the insertion tube and universal cord. Don't forget, certain Olympus endoscope models, for example the duodenoscope, ultrasonic probe, and ultrasonic endoscope models, may need to be loaded in a slightly different manner. The OER-Elite Quick Reference Guide will provide additional instructions. Now that the endoscope is loaded into the OER-Elite basin, it's time to place the accessories into the washing case. First, remove the washing case top and place the biopsy valve in the case, followed by the other accessories. Make sure to open the biopsy valve and then disassemble the accessories when warranted. Then, set the air-water channel cleansing adapters in the washing case, ensuring that the indicator tag is draped outside of the case. Finally, close the cover of the washing case so that the chain from the air-water channel cleaning adapter is not caught in the washing case lid. If activated, once the scope RFID is scanned, the scope connection guide will appear on the display. This guide screen provides the information about the type of connecting tubes required for the endoscope that you just scanned. It will also let the user know the location of the connectors that these connecting tubes are connected to. You'll then select the connecting tube that matches the endoscope by referring to the connection guide screen on the display, matching the color of the tube connector to the color and number of the OER-Elite connector. If the connecting tube is connected to the wrong connector, for an example, the connecting tube for the first endoscope is connected to the connector of the second endoscope, then channel blockage monitoring and channel connectivity monitoring cannot work properly. It's important that none of the connecting tubes are kinked. At this point, any unnecessary tubes should be removed. The auxiliary water tube, the MAJ 855, can be reprocessed simultaneously with the endoscope. Attach the MAJ2138 connecting tube to the auxiliary water supply port of the endoscope. Attach the MAJ855 auxiliary water tube to the MAJ2138 connecting tube. If reprocessing the auxiliary water tube together with the endoscope, the auxiliary water tube cleaning setting should be activated. Before setting the auxiliary water tube, you may want to temporarily place the indicator plate of the air-water channel cleaning adapter on the washing case while loading the auxiliary water tube. This will keep it out of your way for the steps to come. Now, we're going to wrap the auxiliary water tube clockwise in the inner area from the universal cord. After setting the auxiliary water tube, place the indicator plate in its original position in the basin. If the venting connector of the endoscope or the equipment side leak test connector is wet, wipe it thoroughly with a clean cloth moistened with alcohol. Now, we're going to connect the leak test tube to the scope and the OER-Elite connector that is listed on the connection guide. Again, inspect the tube for any kinks. Check the basin for any unnecessary connection as well. Now, confirm that the leak test has been performed with no leaks detected and that the manual cleaning has taken place with this endoscope, as mandated in the scope's reprocessing instructions. Once completed, confirm Yes on this confirmation screen, followed by OK. If these required steps have not been performed, please refer to your endoscope reprocessing instructions in order to complete the reprocessing steps necessary prior to loading the endoscopes into the OER-Elite. Once you've confirmed the scope has been manually cleaned and leak tested, it's time to scan the user ID card. Similar to when we scanned the scope's RFID in our reprocessing log video, we're going to scan the user ID card in the same manner. Simply hold the user ID card over the ID reader section so that the OER-Elite can read the user information. The same can be done with the physician ID card. Again, it's important to note that the user ID card does not need to touch the reader. Simply hold it parallel to the reader, close enough for it to be read. The OER-Elite can reprocess 2 endoscopes at the same time. Please refer to the list of compatible endoscopes and connecting tubes. First, scan the scope RFID or RFID tag over the OER-Elite ID reader section. Next, place the second endoscope's control body directly to the left side of the first loaded scope. The insertion tube of the second endoscope is loaded the exact same way as the first endoscope, following the same path around the retaining rack. Wrap the universal cord counterclockwise around the retaining rack, starting on the left side of the pin and under the hooks of the retaining rack. Place the second endoscope's connector on top of the first endoscope's connector and adjust the position of the insertion tube and universal cord to avoid overlapping as much as possible, as we did earlier in this video with the first endoscope. Now that both endoscopes are loaded properly inside of the OER-Elite basin, it's time to load the scope accessories into the washing case. The accessories for the second scope are loaded into the washing case in an identical fashion to the earlier video. All that is left for you now is to connect the connecting tubes to the second endoscope the same way you did with the first endoscope. Lastly, we will input the user ID or physician ID and set the procedure. Set the stylus pen on the ring of the retaining rack. Now that both scopes are loaded inside the OER-Elite, close the lid and check to ensure that the lid is not touching any portion of the endoscope.
Welcome back. This concludes the loading of endoscopes and accessories in the OER-Elite. We hope you found the information helpful. As always, don't hesitate to contact our experienced TAC team in the event you need additional assistance. Thanks for watching.